This is the legendary LEGO Star Wars set number 75053, The Ghost. It had 929 pieces with 4 minifigures, and when it released in 2014, it cost just $90. However, adjusted for inflation in 2023 money, that's about $115, but the market values this one somewhere around $750. And as someone who hated Star Wars Rebels when it first came out, I basically ignored this set's existence, and while I didn't pay $750 for this, I certainly didn't pay $90, and I think part of the reason why this set is so expensive is because many people have come around to the Star Wars Rebels show, as well as the Ghost as a ship being in more Star Wars media, including the new Ahsoka show, has helped propel the value of this set up. Now, LEGO has released a new one for 2023, but the value of this 2014 model has remained high. Of note, on the back of the box, it showed that this set could be combined with the 75048 Phantom set to create the complete Ghost and Phantom setup. Perhaps even more interesting about this Ghost box is that there are two distinct versions. There is a brown hair Kanan version, which I have here, and a black hair Kanan version, which I borrowed from Orlando Brick Co. This set released months before the Star Wars Rebels show did, and because of that, they had a small inaccuracy with the Kanan minifigure, giving him black hair instead of the brown hair that we all know him to have in the show. And unlike modern day LEGO Star Wars, which will happily falsely advertise to you and ship grossly inaccurate products and just not care, they actually went and changed the minifigure from black hair to brown hair, something that there was no controversy over at the time. They just went and did it. And in doing this great thing, LEGO created the black hair Kanan variant of the Ghost set, which is worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars more than the regular version of the Ghost set. Or if you'd like, you can just buy the black hair Kanan for somewhere between $300 and $400 today. And while you're watching me open the box here, I just want to say that I did have a really fun time building this one. I don't know if it's just because I had this like weird new love for Rebels in the last few years, or if it was just genuinely a good fun build experience, but either way, I did enjoy it. The Stormtrooper was new at the time, but is by far the least exciting figure in the set, and I do believe he stops this from being basically a perfect minifigure selection because he doesn't feel needed. Now, as to the quality of the minifigure, it looks like the Rebel Stormtrooper, and I really do like the look of it. They killed it with the Hera minifigure, starting with the goggles on top of her headpiece. It looks great. She has great printing on the torso and legs, although the oranges don't match perfectly, but it's not super jarring. Flipping her around back, you can see some of the detail on her Leku. Pretty incredible that LEGO was able to include so much detail on her Leku. Just looks great overall, and she does have a second face print, so you can get a couple different facial expressions out of her. Overall, about a perfect minifigure. Another great figure in this set is Zeb. That lavender, purple, and yellow really contrast nicely, and we really got to focus in on this head mold here. It's a killer head mold. The eyes look really cool, and I love the little black details all around, and he's even got some gray details on the top of his head. Overall, a great looking minifigure and my favorite in the set. And then finally, we have the Kanan Jarrus here with brown hair as it came in my set. This Kanan is very good looking, and the ponytail piece they use for his hair is excellent. And now next to the black hair Kanan, you can see that the figure is exactly the same, just with black hair on his head, and the print on the face is black instead of brown. The minifigures in this set are undeniably well executed, although, like I said, just something in place of that Stormtrooper would have made this perfect. Now, given this build is from 2014, what is widely regarded to be one of the best years in LEGO Star Wars history, I thought the build would be better. Not that it's bad, it's just, to me, it doesn't feel like an all-time great build. It's got some pretty glaring inaccuracies just off the bat. The edges of the Ghost build are supposed to be straight, but they have two separate intersecting angles, and it's not straight, so that's just wrong. There's also some pretty massive gaps here that just shouldn't be, and none of this is helped by how good the new model is. And having made a comparison video between this and the new model, it makes me realize this one hasn't aged very well. But I also don't have any real nostalgia for this because I never owned it. Anyway, other than the shaping on the side, the general design of the top paneling with the colors is pretty nice. It could have used a little sand blue like the newer model has, but overall I think the color choice is pretty decent. You also have some stickers that add in some additional detail on the top here. Definitely something that is questionable for some people, but I think they look good on this particular set, and they add a nice bit of wear and tear to it. Now, a couple of these panels actually lift up to find a little space inside, one where you could store some weapons, and the other where you'll find an extra spring-loaded missile. Also underneath the Ghost, you'll find inverted tiles, which are stand-ins for real landing gear, which this set does not have. It also has a point that touches the ground on the back there. Then you have this little turret at the front that's underneath underneath the main front cockpit, and this one can spin all the way around, do some cool tricks, and actually pretty good feature, although I find it annoying just how easily it can move, because when I go to display it, it always gets knocked out of place. That's something that doesn't really matter for the general purpose of a set like this, of course, being play. The spring-loaded missiles are located on the bottom center of the ship and can be shot off easily by pressing up on them. Now is the part of the review process where I try to hunt down the missiles I just shot, because I don't know where they went. Oh, there's one. And then there's actually a secret hatch where if you pull this red lever, it lowers down the hatch, and inside you'll find a crate with a holocron. That is a pretty cool little Easter egg. It's something that you can almost forget is even part of this set. Anyway, the rest of the bottom of this 2014 Ghost looks fine, although you'll notice there is a lot of empty space, and when we get to the interior, you'll realize why. Now, the front windscreen piece here is printed, although I would say it's not the best designed print, or at least not the most accurate. It looks fine, but it's got some marks that are definitely missing that the new one has. And the windscreen right above that has a sticker on it, which adds a lot of detail to the top of the Ghost. Now, you can actually pull down this entire piece and pull out the entire, well, that's what happens most of the time, but you're supposed to be able to pull out, there's a little clip on the back that attaches to that red piece, this entire front cockpit area. Kind of vibe with the sticker control panel, because it's something that's not the normal printed one that they put in literally everything nowadays, but you can put Kanan in there. It looks like there's even space for more stuff behind him, although because of the cockpit on the second level, you'll see that even if you had a minifig there, they just wouldn't fit because they would have to be like a brick tall to actually fit. But Kanan's in there. Close that up and he's good to go. Now for the next seat, you just have to pull this windscreen forward and we can still see Kanan's head inside. There's also a couple of levers in there that Hera can try to hold on to, but we'll get her seated there. Not too difficult, and she looks pretty good in there, and there it is closed up. This cockpit area for Kanan and Hera is really where the interior space of this Ghost peaks. It's all downhill from there to me. So in this next little section here, we have what LEGO considers to be the interior for the Ghost, and they don't make it very easy to open up, but there you go. That's your interior space, that little 4x4 plot of land in there. That's all you have. If you're lucky, you'll be able to fit 2 minifigs inside, but we'll get a stormtrooper in and lean him back, and that's really what you're supposed to be able to fit, is just 1 minifig inside of that little interior area. Isn't that just sad to see on what is considered an all-time great set? Remember when I said there was a lot of empty space on the bottom? Well, it's because there's literally nothing to take it up. I like the idea for the turret on top of this one, being able to spin 360 degrees and look up and down. It has a little bubble for characters to see out of, but putting characters inside is a hassle. Plus there's a huge gap on the back of it that just looks abysmal. So yeah, it's pretty sorry to see that. But anyway, you pull the top off, you take the whole thing out. They want you to put Zeb in there, so we will oblige. Pop the top back on. I think it's a pretty bad system. He gets caught going in all the time, but I mean, he looks fine in there. It's just weird to see his arms peeking out through the back of it when you're supposed to be in space, just having giant gaps there. I don't know. It annoys me. On both sides of the Ghost, you'll find escape pods resting on black skids. They slide off very easily, and when you open them, you'll find a pretty simple interior. And there are 2 escape pods, both of them exactly the same. The top piece is very loose fitting, so placing it back on is very easy. And then as you can see, putting them back in is a breeze. Definitely a nice play feature. Now, another interesting inclusion here on the back are the doors that lead to the interior. Oh, wait. That's not the interior. That's just like the bottom of Zeb's thing. So yeah, if it wasn't obvious, this Ghost has a really weird and quirky interior setup with 4 different separate spaces. Now this very back section has the docking bay and the engines. I think the engines here look pretty good. They've aged fine, and I do like the orange thrust coming out of the back. They're reasonably strong. They don't fall off super easily, which is what you're looking for at the end of the day, because they're the type of things that would get hit because they're sticking off the main build of the Ghost. But the docking bay. All right, so we got this sticker here, which I think would wear poorly over time. Of course, I just built a brand new set, but if this was 9 years old, I'm pretty sure that thing would be peeling off and not look too hot. But this panel on the back here is actually on a hinge because this is the part that you combine with the Phantom. So you'd have to buy the Phantom as a separate model, and if you didn't, you'd be left with a big gaping hole in the back of your Ghost that looks ugly. So buying this was almost not optional to me if you were planning to display it, but it attaches really simply. You just have the stud there. There's an empty spot on the bottom for the stud to attach to, goes right in, all the way snug to the back, and then you would lower this to hold the angle all the way down, otherwise you just have a big gap. And this also just helps stabilize it when it's attaching, because it's literally only attached with 1 stud. But I don't think it's too shabby a look with the Phantom 1 attached. Again, this was released alongside it in 2014, meant explicitly to go with it, probably designed from the beginning side by side, but the set overall does not look as good when you attach the Phantom 2 that came out a few years later. It was also compatible, but it just didn't look as good because it was huge looking. With no nostalgia goggles in sight, I feel like the Ghost build is incredibly mid, but it gets carried pretty hard by those minifigs. Zeb, Hera, and Kanan doing the heavy lifting for this one, and its reasonable price went a long way, I think. It might not be the perfect model, but for $90 back in the day, it was a reasonable price, and so it's like, well, if it's not overpriced, whatever, I guess. Unless you have some crazy nostalgia for this set, I can't imagine buying this set in 2023 or beyond. It's just not that good outside of the minifigs, and at that, buy the minifigs separately. You don't need this build when you can get the new Ghost build for $160, and it's far better both for play and display, and just the overall design and look of it. It's just incredible. This is a 7 out of 10 LEGO Star Wars set for me. Check out my other Ghost videos on the end screen now.